Okay, hi everyone. My name is Joel Asoma, and welcome to my podcast called The Terrors of Microplastics. Today I'm here with.
Chris Diaz, undergraduate Bachelor of Science in Public Health and Exercise Science, pursuing my master's and MPH in Master's in Public Health.
Today I will discuss a very concerning topic that people are not aware of, and that topic is microplastics and how it affects sea life and human health. The reason why I want to discuss this topic is because microplastics is considered very dangerous and severe towards marine life and human health, which is very concerning for both species. First, let's start with what are microplastics? Well, they are tiny plastic particles that are smaller than 5 millimeters that come from breakdown plastic waste, synthetic fibers, and personal care products. They pollute water, soil, and air, harming animals and humans. A question I would like to ask my guests here is, have you heard about microplastics and their impact on the environment?
Um, no, not too specifically. I haven't heard too much about microplastic as a specific topic isolated. Maybe more so as like one of the factors to like sea pollution and things like that. That's what I've heard.
Right. Next up, how I feel like people should know about this topic because we need water to survive, and it's also our life supply for many occasions like drinking, using it for watering our plants and nutrition. The same thing with fish as well. They need it for sea life, habitats, oxygen supply, and reproduction and life cycles. People are not aware of this topic because they seem to not care about what they're putting into their body, and microplastics is very dangerous towards both humans and sea life because they consume it very daily, which is very concerning because you're drinking it from the water, you're eating it from the sea life as well, which is very concerning for our health. Another question I want to ask my guests is, how do you think microplastics affect sea life and humans?
Sea life and humans. I guess this is great to talk about in the public health world because we're all on this upstream way of thinking right now. Upstream, for example, is what's something that I can use? Let's say, easy example, somebody's homeless. Instead of just giving them a house and a place to stay and sleep and eat, you give them the tools and the resources they can to be self-sufficient. Another example in the healthcare system would probably be like, okay, you notice a lot of people are suffering from a particular type of communicable or non-communicable disease. Instead of focusing on treating it at the individual level when the disease already expresses itself, you focus on the type of factors that may cause them to have the disease in the first place. So So when I think about microplastics and how it may affect the sea life, I feel like anything that throws the ecosystem off balance just leaves the potential for vulnerability and just leaves like the populations or the ecosystem susceptible to be thrown off balance. Like anything can happen, just moving more towards chaos
Do you also think it's coming from like waste, like litter, that people be throwing trash in the sea, like I don't know, like plastic bags, lead, certain oils that affects the sea life that can also harm humans as well?
Yeah, it all has to end up somewhere.
Do you believe microplastics pose a serious threat to the ocean life?
Yes, because if plastic takes so much time to break down and it's in the ocean and we just keep on putting more and more plastics into the ocean, unless we find a different alternative option to stop the pollution and reduce the pollution and start cleaning up the oceans and the pollution in that ecosystem, I feel like it'll just keep getting worse.
That's right. So, for a solution that can stop people in sea life to consume microplastics, is that there should be certain policies and regulations for this sort of issue. A policy I thought of was banning microplastics in consuming products in the U.S. The reason why I chose this is because in the U.S., for this to happen, the Microbead Free Waters Act of 2015 bans plastic microbeads in rinse-off personal care products. The reason why this is considered important is because it addresses the pollution caused by tiny plastic beads commonly found in personal care products, which is mainly one of the main reasons why microplastics enter in the water. It also prevents millions of microbeads from entering waterways each year and reduces plastic pollution. What do you think of that?
In a sense, like, do I support that policy, or do I want to think of like my own policy, or
Do you support it? Do you think it's a good idea that that policy should exist or that exists?
and say the policy again? More so like,
The policy is ban on microplastics in consuming products in the U.S. The Microbead Free Waste Act of 2015 bans plastic microbeads in rinse-off personal care products. The reason why it's important is because it addresses the pollution caused by tiny plastic beads commonly found in personal care products. It helps prevent millions of microplastics from entering waterways each year and reduces plastic pollution.
yeah, I definitely like it. Only thing I would add to a policy like that is, okay, maybe that definitely slows down what's going on, but at least for the animals already in the ecosystem that are affected from microplastics, that still remains like the case. We're still gonna have people consuming animals and dealing with ecosystems that have been affected from microplastics. So I do love the policy. Great. Only thing I would add is probably something to address what to also do with what's already happening at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. How do you think microplastics might affect human health?
Anything that doesn't belong in your body is going to throw off your body dysfunctions to not act the way it needs to. Same way it is when the sea life is eating it. So I can anticipate a lot of reproductive health problems, a lot of people becoming easily more susceptible to diseases in a sense of, okay, you're consuming all these things that don't belong in your body, so your immune system is busy trying to identify and fight off against that. So then when you come against something like the flu or another common cold, it hits you a little bit harder because your immune system is already stressed out.
That's correct.
So that's how I look at it.
Do you believe microplastics pose a serious threat to the ocean life?
I feel like we pose the bigger threat to the ocean life than the microplastics do. It's
I
our
do agree with
habits. It's our habits and our creations that are what are gonna cause, we're gonna add or subtract to what's going on with the pollution and the microplastics. So yeah, microplastic is microplastics are a problem, but a common denominator when it comes to pollution and all these public health problems is just the people and our habits.
I totally agree with you on that. I do agree that we do pose a threat as well because we are the reason why we're getting affected like that due to littering in the ocean, due to not taking care of the sea life, and we're the reason why we get sick, and also could be another reason why people die off of that too. So I do agree with you on that one because that's the truth, and people need to pay attention more on what they're doing to the sea life because, like I said before in the beginning of my podcast, water is basically our life source. We need it to survive, we need it for nutrients. We drink it every single day, it takes care of our body, but how are we gonna do that if we continue to put waste into the ocean, affecting sea life, also affecting ourselves? So how we gonna do that when we continue to keep doing stuff like that? You feel me? And my last question is, what were your final thoughts on this podcast?
My final thoughts on this podcast, I liked that. I liked the questions. I liked that it was about sea life because it wasn't something that initially would have popped in my head to just be like, oh, I got this. It wasn't a topic that was just like, I felt very effortless in, so it made me think a little more because I'm not really a big environmental guy. I'm more of like a community health kind of guy.
Do you think there should be other solutions other than the policy that I talked about earlier with you?
Um, yeah, 100%. But that's just because like a plan can always be better. For example, like some of the things that are making up these microplastics and plastics that are ending up in the ocean that can be toxic to animals, humans, us, and make their way through the whole like ecosystem. And maybe you can create a different kind of not a different kind of plastic, but substitute to material. You know what I mean? See with that, like what's going on with that. You're making all these things in factories, us as people, and then they're also just still ending up at waste.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what those effects when those elements biodegrade, what they're releasing into our atmosphere. So I just feel like policies on what we're making, what we're putting in what we're making, where it ends up, all that is in order, and there's a lot of room for structure in the U.S. healthcare system in general, but also the public health system and public health policy.
Well, there you go, everybody. That's the end of my podcast. Yet again, I'm Joel Asoma.
Christopher Diaz, thank you for coming.